I the fudge? Or, I'm still trying to get that part clear. I'm going to improvise a couple of things this morning just based on what I've already heard. Diana was talking about Jack has been around this organization from day one, and I've known Jack since 1995. I feel like I already know you because I've heard Jack talk about this organization so many times and so often. I wasn't aware that the hug process started here. And I want to ask a question, though, and just out of integrity, I want you to raise your hand if you did not get a hug during the hug process. How many people, honestly, did not get a hug? And if you didn't, I want you to stand up and get a hug from the person next to you. Do you feel the energy shift in the room when we do that? I actually asked Arlene to help me. There's a couple things I had on the table already, but I had an intuitive voice tell me last night as I was packing up my things to be sure and bring some of these buttons that are on your table. And these buttons came out of the work that I do with Jack, and it just says, I hug. Because isn't it true that we don't get enough hugs? That we don't get enough close physical contact with people in that nurturing way? And this is my gift to you as a way to not just have that hug process every Wednesday morning, but if you wear this button, I guarantee what will happen is that people will ask you what it is. And you can simply tell them that you're someone who enjoys getting and giving hugs, and you will get more hugs and give more hugs as a result of that. And this comes from the fact that Jack actually takes this hug process. Jack is the great borrower. He borrowed this, and he makes it a part of his summer training. We do a training every August for a week, and every day starts with the hug process. And the first day, it's very kind of stiff and rigid, but by the end of a week-long training, it's the most nurturing and loving, connected hugs that I've ever experienced in my life. I created this button as a way to get more of those kinds of hugs. So, you already know this, but I am not Jack Canfield. I just want to be clear for those of you who came, and I appreciate the warm introduction. I feel like I've known you for years after hearing so much about you and the organization. And it was really, I got a phone call yesterday afternoon asking me what I was doing this morning. And it really is an honor to be here. I told you that I've heard about this organization for a long time. I did a little search online. That was the closest I could find to a logo for the Inside Edge. Amazing what else you find when you search the Inside Edge online, just for the record. It's all sorts of interesting stuff. Like when you search for anything nowadays, right? But there's two things I want to be really clear with you about. And I haven't had a chance to talk to Jack directly since I got that phone call. But here's what I know. I know that Jack wishes he was here. I've worked with Jack for 10 years, very closely for the last 5 years. I have never heard of him not being able to make a speaking engagement. Never. And that combined with how highly I have heard him speak of this organization makes it really clear to me that he must be really sick. Now, at the same time, several people have asked me, and I want to be clear too, there's no reason to be worried. There's no indication that there's any serious illness or anything. I think this is a case of someone just working really hard and running himself into the ground. He's been sick off and on for about a month. He was at the hospital yesterday getting some tests. There was no reason to think that there was anything serious going on, but he was just too non-functional, however we want to define that, to be able to be here. And again, for me, it's an honor to be here. So I've known Jack since 1995, just to tell you a little bit about my background and how I got here. This is a photo that was actually taken in 1997. Wow, look at that. Dug that one up last night. But I first met Jack in 1995 when I was at a one-day workshop, and a woman held up a set of his tapes, How to Build High Self-Esteem. And for those of you who have been around a long time, you watched Jack, in the context of this organization, create those tapes, because I know he refers to the Inside Edge as part of the support group that helped him do that. And I tell Jack I've known him so long that he actually refers to O.J. Simpson as a really good person who sets goals and knows how to achieve them in that first set of tapes. That has since been edited out. But I knew Jack for 2 years in my car. He and I were driving around together, right? How many of you have that mobile university thing going on, right? Where we're listening to our tapes and learning? And I finally said, I need to meet this man. And in 1997, where this picture was taken, I actually went to that week-long training that I was talking about. At the time, it was called Facilitating Skills Seminar. It's now called Breakthrough to Success. He still does it every summer. Amazing, amazing event, one of the most profound experiences of my life. And it was my opportunity to really start this journey of doing the work that I'm doing now. The most profound impact that this work has had on me is as a parent. These are my 3 kids. My daughter Kelly in the middle is 18. My son Duncan on your right is 16. And my daughter Lisa is 13. And I know for a fact, being around Jack and being around this work, I have been a profoundly different parent. And it shows up. I could spend the rest of my 45 minutes just talking about stories about these 3, but we can do that another time. The other thing that my work with Jack has allowed me to do is to branch out and do my own work. Diana mentioned I have my own book called Manifesting for Non-Gurus, and I know that this would not have happened without the support and the knowledge that I've gotten from working with Jack. And the content of my book literally emerged out of the work that I've done with Jack, particularly that Platinum Inner Circle group that Diana talked about. So that's Jack and I on stage together. I love this picture because it really, for me, gives me a sense of the relationship that I have with him. He's really an incredible mentor, almost like a father figure to me. And it was interesting because this is at the Transformational Leadership Council that we're both members of. And I had the opportunity to be facilitating an exercise, and I needed a volunteer. And it was something I'd been waiting 12 years to do. I actually got to pick him out of the audience to come up on stage and be my volunteer to demonstrate an exercise. So one of the things that Jack always does, and I'm actually using his slides today. I told you he's a borrower. He also has another habit, I don't know what we would call it, but he is an over-preparer, we'll just call that. So Veronica is Jack's assistant, she sent me his slides yesterday. And for this 45-minute presentation, she sent me 180 slides. So most of my night last night was going delete, 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 delete. And not to delete any of the content, but just to keep us on time and really zero in on the things that I feel like I can deliver most effectively to you. Jack always starts his presentations with cartoons for a couple of reasons. One is because it really brings up the energy in the room. You see, when the laughter and the stories about the fudge and these kinds of things are happening, it just brings up the energy in the room. The other thing is there's scientific evidence to prove that when we're laughing, we learn better. We open up and we're actually able to learn better. So I edited out a few of these, but here's a few of the cartoons that Jack uses. It says, Mrs. Hammond, I'd recognize you anywhere from Little Billy's portrait of you. When Pinocchio talks to girls online. I'll let you read this one as it comes up. Oh, sorry. Oh. Yeah, but think about it. Honey, please, just calm down. Let me explain. I'll let you read this one. This is my kid's favorite. Every Easter in my house, we have the chocolate bunnies. Every Thanksgiving, we have the chocolate turkeys. This card always comes up. It says, well, it seems your weight is perfect. You just happen to be 11 feet too short. And then this is a dog going off with its owner and talking to the other dog. It says, ha ha, Biff, guess what? After we go to the drugstore and the post office, I'm going to the vet's to get tutored. Not so much, huh? And then finally, there's the mother chicken with her son or daughter is sick in bed. This is appropriate for today. And she says, quit complaining and eat it. Number 1, chicken soup is good for the flu. And number 2, it's nobody we know. I've been in and out of Jack's office a lot over the years, and it's amazing how many cartoons are out there about chicken soup for the soul. Amazing how many big-time cartoonists have mentioned chicken soup for the soul. And what an amazing testimony to the level of success and the level of notoriety of that book. A lot of people haven't heard of Jack Canfield. I tell people I'm the director of training for Jack Canfield, and they give me what I call the RCA dog look. That kind of thing. And they haven't heard of him, but everyone has heard of Chicken Soup for the Soul. Jack loves to tell the story of being in Oman and asking how many people have read a Chicken Soup for the Soul book, and almost every hand in the room goes up. It's been translated into Arabic, and everyone really around the world has read these books. A couple of statistics: it was rejected by 144 publishers. And again, some of you were around while all that was going on. There's now 225 titles. I don't know if that's current, but there's at least 225 titles. 47 languages. And just recently, based on some sales in China, this number went way up. Over 500 million copies have been sold of these Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And what I love to tell people from my perspective of working with Jack on the training side of his business is that the success of the books is amazing, but this isn't even Jack's work. This is called a little side project that he and Mark Victor Hansen decided to do. And I see the heads nodding. You guys were around. This isn't even his work. In fact, it took him off task from his work because it took off to the degree that it did. The Chicken Soup for the Soul phenomenon, to me, is a perfect example of Jack practicing his work, practicing what he preaches. And I've heard it from several of you who know Jack well. He lives this work. He doesn't just get up in front of the room and tell us all what we should do. He's doing it. And to me, Chicken Soup for the Soul is the best example of that. So enough with the Chicken Soup for the Soul. How about some pizza for the sun? And again, there it is. The core work really is the Success Principles work. How many of you are familiar with the Success Principles book? I consider this to be the Bible of personal and professional development. Alex Mandossian, who interviews Jack every month on what we call the Ask Jack call, calls this the Big White Book. It is. It's the Big White Book. And it's an incredible resource. I'm actually working with Alex to get him to call my book the Little Blue Book, but we'll see how that goes. But this Success Principles work is really the content of Jack's presentations. It's the content that I'm going to go through today. We're obviously not going to go through all 64 principles, but what we're going to do is go through some highlights that Jack would normally cover in a time frame like this, in a group like this. So you with me? You ready? Okay. So wouldn't it be nice if there weren't 64 principles, if there were just 3, right? J. Paul Getty said there's 3 keys to success. 1 is get up early. We all did that today. We're on track, right? I got up really early. I was telling Diana I was really excited about being here every moment since I heard, except one, and that was when my alarm went off this morning. Number 2 is work hard. We're all willing to do that, right? We're all willing to work hard? And number 3 is find oil. And unfortunately, that's where it gets a little tricky, right? Because finding oil, or the kind of figurative oil, is where it does get tricky. And this is why there are 64 principles, why there's not 3 principles. If there were only 3, it would be easy. And it can be easier, and it can be simple, but it's not always easy. So we're going to start, just quickly, Orrin Hudson is a fellow NSA member with Jack, and to just kind of set this up, with the principles and kind of putting them in order, Orrin talks about the fact that these success principles are very much like the combination to a lock. You turn the wheel one way and you turn the wheel the other way. If you know the combination to the lock, then it will open. It doesn't matter if you're tall, if you're short, if you're a man, or if you're a woman, if you're old, if you're young, if you're black, if you're white. It doesn't matter if you know the combination to the lock. And for Jack, this is really an analogy for his work, is the success principles. If you know the work and you know the sequence, then you can create the results you want. And again, I look at Chicken Soup as a perfect example of how this really does work if you put these principles into action. Jack does a lot of work in education. I heard we have some teachers here today. He also does a lot of work in corporate. One of his examples with corporate is doing some work with RE/MAX and taking 86% of the agents and having them double or triple their income in 1 year by bringing these principles in. So it absolutely works.